Welcome to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast, where we help you in the LGBTQ plus community find a safe and affordable retirement place. Join Mark Goldstein as he interviews others who live in gay-friendly places around the globe. Learn about the climate, cost of living, healthcare, crime and safety, and more. Now, here's your host, Mark Goldstein.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Today we travel to Ajijic, Mexico, Lake Chapala area with our guests Steve Cross and Harold Watts. We'll tell you a little bit about Steve and Harold. Steve Cross was born and raised in Northern Ireland, but knew from his early teens he would not stay there due to the oppression of the gay community at the time. He left to see the world on cruise ships in 1992. I hope it was a job and not just paying to go on cruise ships, and discovered Puerto Vallarta through visiting the ports. In 2004, he left the ships and settled in Puerto Vallarta and began to sell real estate there. He and his now deceased husband decide to move to Ajijic in the Lake Chapala area of Mexico, where the climate is just about perfect year-round. Originally, he opened a bed and breakfast and combined that with real estate, but on the death of his husband for 5 years, he has focused totally on real estate. So now we'll tell you a little bit about Harold. So Harold was born and raised in San Diego, California. In 1983, he moved to the San Francisco Bay Area to attend Sonoma University. During his years in San Francisco, he worked companies such as Strouds Linens, Macy's, and Williams-Sonoma. Just got plates from Williams-Sonoma. In 1999, Harold made his decision to move to Palm Springs, California, and start his real estate career. In 2004, he met his future husband, Jeff, and they have been together for 18 years and married for 8 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The decision to retire to Mexico has always been in the works, but COVID-19 sped up the process for Harold. When the world was shutting down, he and Jeff decided to lock down in Ajijic, Mexico, where they had a home, and they never looked back. A year later, Harold and Jeff purchased a building with 3 studio rooms and a restaurant. They leased the restaurant space to the former owner, and Harold renovated the 3 studio rooms for vacation rentals. When Harold is not working on his vacation rental business, he is involved with acting in the local theater group and giving back to the community via local charities. Very good. Welcome, both of you, to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. And what was that strange language that you had at the beginning of the podcast?
Oh, the hola, ¿cómo estás?
Yeah, what is that all about?
Was that, did it sound Spanish?
It was, yes, it was, but the accent needs some work.
Okay, I'll work on that. See, there's a difference. I'm working on my European Spanish, whereas you have your
that's Latin. Right, and it's quite different. Yeah.
But anyway.
And it's really bad when you speak Spanish with an Irish accent.
Oh, I can imagine. I want to hear that. Especially when you had a few.
Exactly.
So I'll tell the audience a little bit about Ajijic. So Ajijic is a town about 4.8 kilometers west of the town of Chapala, part of the municipality in the state of Jalisco, Mexico. See, I said that right. Situated on the north shore of Lake Chapala, surrounded by mountains, Ajijic enjoys a moderate climate year-round. The population of Ajijic was around 11,440 as of 2020 census. So, gentlemen, why did you choose Ajijic as a city in Mexico when, there are so many cities to choose from, but why did you choose Ajijic?
Well, I chose it after 4 years in Puerto Vallarta, and I was working there, so I wasn't really utilizing the beaches, and I was doing the bars at weekends, but I usually worked on a Sunday. And because I was partnered at the time, I thought I'd want something that was maybe just a little bit more settled, I guess, for want of a better word. And we actually came here kind of by default. We went many years ago, we were meeting my now deceased husband's father in Guadalajara, and he got into a car accident on the way there, and his car couldn't continue. So we didn't want to, we'd been to the city many times. We didn't want to stay there. And we decided to come out and see the area at the lake. The concierge at the hotel told us to do that. And we came, and because it was New Year, we met people. We immediately thought it was extremely friendly. And we got invited to so many parties that we decided we'd go back to the hotel, pack everything up, and come back here and go to all the parties that we were asked to.
Party boy.
Well, we were then, but parties here end significantly earlier than Puerto Vallarta.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
And how about you, Harold?
Well, for me, we picked Ajijic because we had already had a house here. A friend of ours, he bought a house in 2005 in Ajijic, and my husband, Jeff, and our friend Doug were best friends for nearly 30 years. And Doug developed cancer, and he came back to the States and was receiving cancer treatments. And ultimately, unfortunately, he to his cancer, and he left us a house here in Ajijic. But we had already have a house in San Miguel, but we chose to stay in Ajijic because of the weather. Also, the people here are just extremely, extremely friendly. And Steve Cross was one of the first people I met here in Ajijic. But out of all the different places that I have been, I would have to say the weather was the ultimate deciding factor. And because even though we have a place in San Miguel, I like it here better.
So you still maintain the place in San Miguel too?
Yeah, we still maintain that, and that we don't put in a vacation rental situation. It's just there for friends, and that's it. But given its location, yeah, I could make a lot of money on that house, but we chose, it also belonged to a dear friend who passed away several years ago, and we just said, we're just going to use it ourselves, rather than a vacation rental. But I choose to live here in Ajijic over San Miguel just because of the weather. Well, yeah,
well,
Steve.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's ironic because I hate everybody.
No, but it's also more expensive in San Miguel. And so that's also one of the deciding factors to stay in Ajijic full time.
Gotcha. So geographically speaking, can you explain where Ajijic, before I even started the podcast and the group, I had never heard of Ajijic, Mexico until I kind of like bumped into Steve Cross. Can you tell me
Everybody bumps into Steve Cross.
I insist on it.
And it's a nice bump. But so where geographically located is Ajijic within Mexico?
Okay. The best way to describe it is we are about a 45-minute drive from the Guadalajara airport, Guadalajara being the second largest city in Mexico. And so I would say it's about a 40-kilometer drive from the airport to the heart of Ajijic. And from Guadalajara, one of the great things about living in Ajijic, because you have an international airport, you can pretty much go anywhere, not only in Mexico, but to the United States. Mexico just recently introduced a flight, a nonstop from Guadalajara to Madrid, Spain, which I took advantage of when I went to Europe this summer and made the return trip back to Guadalajara from Madrid, Spain. And it was a nonstop flight.
Wow. I can't even get a nonstop to Spain.
Yeah. Well, for me as well, I just went home for my mother's birthday 5 weeks ago to Northern Ireland, and I was able to go from Guadalajara to Atlanta and Atlanta to Dublin. So it's just 2 flights to get to Ireland.
Nice.
And Harold's got a little bit more money than me, so they can afford first class. I normally go everywhere by donkey.
Oh God.
Well, you do
Yeah.
spend the extra money for your shoes.
That's true.
For your luggage.
Yes, you have to see these shoes. God, if they could only see a video, I might take a clip somewhere and just put it on the podcast. They'd get a kick out of it. So, okay, so yeah, it's centrally located, and Mexico too, especially for expats from the United States, it's really close. So that's why Mexico is like the number one expat place
Exactly. Yeah.
for Americans.
It's just easy to get back home if you need to do that.
Right, right. So, okay, is living in an LGBTQ community important to you? Does Ajijic or Lake Chapala have that, or is it live and let live? Does just no one care, or everybody's integrated? How does that?
Yeah,
fit in?
well, we became interested, my husband and I. We saw an article in The Advocate, which was February, I believe, 2008, and it profiled Ajijic as one of the best places for gay people to retire. And even though we kind of came here by accident, we spent maybe 4 nights here, our very first visit, and we saw a lot of gay people. And then we hooked into that community. The gay community has grown hugely. I've been here almost 15 years. We have a gay group on Facebook, Gay Alliance Ajijic, and it has 100 members now. So
wow,
we
that's
have
impressive.
we have a big community. There's lots of events that are organized. We have, she doesn't market really as a completely gay bar, but it's where all the gay guys go, called Lucky Bar. But however,
I've seen that.
Yes, you're very welcome here in any bar. Being gay is just not an issue, either with locals or with the expat community. So we fit in very, very well to the community. It's not an issue at all.
How many expats do you think there are in Ajijic or in the Lake Chapala area?
In the area, they say anything from 20,000 to 30,000. That's throughout the whole Chapala region.
Okay.
And of course, it's seasonal because we have a lot of snowbirds that choose to winter here.
Okay, snow gays.
Yes, yeah, yes. Well, actually, most of the gay guys tend to be here full time. Most of them have moved full time, and we've actually had quite a lot move from Palm Springs, like Harold and Jeff did. We've actually had quite a large community move from there. And apart from the weather that we have, one of the other draws is the property taxes, because property taxes are extremely low.
So, Harold, tell me, thank you, Steve, by the way. Harold, tell me, the reason the weather that you moved from Palm Springs to Ajijic?
One of the major reasons is the weather, given the fact that after living in Palm Springs for 21 years, and you acclimate to the weather, but, it seems like every summer it just kept getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And I was just getting tired of that. And so when coming down to Ajijic, where we're at an elevation of about 5,200 feet elevation, and the temperature is pretty moderate through most of the year, and which is really nice. It doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too cold. It's kind of like the Goldilocks effect. It's just right. But Jeff and I were always knew we were going to retire in Mexico, and we just didn't know when. Jeff retired 11 years ago when he was 51, and nice. We had made the steps over the years. We sold our house in Palm Springs, moved into a condo. So we were making the progression of coming down. And then when we got the house in Ajijic, it just solidified what we were going to do here. And so we had the house in Ajijic first before the house in San Miguel.
Okay.
And by house, they mean mansion, but I want everybody to know that I am absolutely not bitter in any way.
Wait, Steve, was that the picture I saw of that mansion overlooking the water? Harold, that was your place?
That was my place.
Oh my God!
I know.
I'm coming over for a trip.
Exactly. We'll bring
just-
some single mature gays because I have probably about 6 months left to be a trophy husband. And then after that, I'm past my sell-by.
Oh my God! Just save me one of the many rooms that you might have.
Exactly. Well, they're actually building a lot
buildings.
more rooms. Yes, because they've got nothing else to do with their time or their money.
Oh my goodness! I saw that place. I was like, "Wow, whose place is this?"
Exactly. No,
Harold,
it's like
you
you're
were
at a
holding
resort.
back.
Yes.
You were holding back, Harold.
Yes. That is my place.
He's lucky he has me to do his PR.
Oh, boy.
Very true.
I'd be his houseboy.
Well,
So-
he did interview, but he didn't pass the interview.
Yes. I interviewed his pool boy, but I gained a little weight over quarantine.
All right. So I was going to ask, since Ajijic is really in the center of the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have real access to beaches, right? Do you have to travel like 2 hours?
Yeah, you can travel. I mean, Puerto Vallarta, they're putting in a new highway to Puerto Vallarta, which is largely finished. But, in true Mexico fashion, it was to be finished 2 years ago, and they're still working on it. When that's finished, you should get comfortably to Puerto Vallarta in 4 hours. But there are other beaches that we can access that are maybe 2.5 to 3 hours away.
Okay.
So, yeah, but here is really focused around the lake.
Okay, gotcha.
And also, obviously, that's why our climate is rated so high, because we're not at the coast, so we don't really have the humidity that's associated with that. We're actually supposed to be the second best climate in the world for all year-round living, but nobody has ever produced that article that gave us that rating.
Right.
Currently, it was in Inquirer before they went to the internet. So that's always what's been said. But like I say, nobody can actually produce the article that proves it.
Right. Could you swim in that lake, or are there like creepy crawlies in there that you don't want?
I wouldn't personally swim in the lake, and I don't think anybody here would.
Okay.
It's nice to look at. But kind of what happens apart from everything else, there used to be squatters at the lake in the dry season. So they usually have like a goat or cows that they milk or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they put up barbed wire to enclose them, and then they move on when the rains come and the water level rises. So no, none of us would swim in the lake. No.
Yeah,
I mean, some locals will go in to fish and so on, and there's now beginning to be a little bit of boating action. But it's really just nice to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's really no gayborhood in Ajijic, or is there a place where most of the gays, there's no?
No, we
Okay.
kind of don't really need it, because everybody kind of just hangs out together. I mean, we have that one gay bar, but I mean, I go to maybe 3 or 4 other bars that are, in inverted commas, straight bars, but nobody cares.
Right.
We can go
That's
10
good.
of us together to something like that, and nobody is worried or cares about us being there.
That's good. That's good. Is it difficult to make friends? I mean, you have a language. Yeah. Explain about the language. Is there a language barrier? Do you both know Spanish fluently, or?
Well, that's why we asked you what you were speaking at the beginning of the podcast. Yeah.
Hola.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? What the hell are you saying?
So you don't.
For me, I understand a lot of Spanish, but I think I cannot speak it fluently. I think that's just because of my own fear. But I do make an effort to try to speak, the language here locally. But given where we are in Ajijic, many people do speak English. And so, but what I try to do, I have a few people who work for us, and they do not speak English. So I make an effort via Google Translator and some other things to learn specific phrases, and I'm trying to use less and less of the translator so I can learn to speak it fluently, but it's taking longer than anticipated. But I've been here for a few years full time, and I really never have had an issue communicating, because
That's
there are
good.
resources like Google Translator or some of the other apps. And also too, that one of the girls who works for me, that she also uses translators so she can translate from Spanish to English, and so that is work, but it hasn't been an issue. But I always tell people, you're in another country, and at least try to make an effort to speak the language, because unfortunately we don't want to be that one person that is, you should be speaking English. And I want to say, you're not in America, in North America. You need to at least make an effort to learn it, but it's not an absolute necessity.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty comforting.
Yeah,
How about you, Steve?
I can speak reasonably well. I can certainly survive in the language. I should, after so many years in the country, I should be better. But so many locals here speak English and want to practice their English, which is a good excuse for us not to improve our Spanish. But I do speak reasonably well. I can certainly do everything that I need to do in Spanish. But we go to things like restaurants, and the menus are in both languages. So we're spoiled really here, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I'm not going to say you sounded, but does your Irish brogue get in the way a little bit?
Apparently, especially when I lived in Puerto Vallarta, I went to a building site once with another lady who was actually Irish but had lived in Mexico most of her life. And we went on a building site, and I asked a question to somebody, and they all just stood there. And then she asked the exact same question with the same words, and everybody jumped into action. And I said, well, why did they not do that when I said it? He said, well, no, your Irish accent really comes out when you speak Spanish. I said, oh, well, that would just be typical my luck.
Well, yeah. Harold, Steve just looks at people with his eyes, and then he doesn't have to speak.
I love the way you do my PR.
He has those bedroom eyes.
Yes, he does.
Unfortunately, they failed me mostly in the last few years.
So you have made friends with both expats and locals?
Yes.
You made friends with locals too?
I mean, to be honest with you, we're friends with much more expats.
Yeah.
But it's beginning to change, because people come down and they end up with a partner who's Mexican and so on. But when I was here 15 years ago, my deceased husband was Mexican. We used to go to all these parties. And back then, he used to say, well, I was the only Mexican, just me and the bartender, which was very true back then. Now it's not like that. I mean, Harold throws great parties and would actually have quite a few local people at the parties, which we love, because we don't want to be exclusively living in our own little bubble. Yeah, we want to include everybody. So it's becoming even more so like that.
Oh, nice. So explain to our audience, what is the local economy like as far as food, either buying it to cook or going out to dinner, examples of your electric bills, water bills, utility bills, and then also, Steve, I know you're really good at this, and the real estate prices for purchasing and also renting.
Okay. Well, first of all, utility bills and that kind of thing. Obviously, solar panels or solar electricity here are hugely popular. My house is 2,100 square feet with a private swimming pool. My electricity bill in US dollars, we're billed here every 2 months for electricity. My bill before I put in solar was about $250 a month to run the whole place. And that's running. We don't use AC that much, but you have ceiling fans going. But so you have that and the pool and whatever. And when I put the solar panels in, it went down to, now I'm paying about $7 a month.
Wow. That's incredible.
So it's pretty good. Internet and so on is roughly about $20 to hit the local, depending what you want, but anywhere between probably 20 and 40.
And that's for your home internet, or is that for
Yes.
your...
Yeah,
Okay.
that's for home internet.
Okay. And how about, is it home internet packaged with your phone or no?
The one that I have is with a landline. So I still have a landline, which I don't even know the number to because I just use it for the internet.
Right.
And that is $19 a month.
Yeah, it's quite inexpensive.
Yeah.
And how about water bills?
Well, with the water bill, you typically pay that right around the time of when you pay your property taxes once a year. And I don't know what it was for our house. I can quote on what it was for my building where it has the 3 vacation rentals and the restaurants. I paid, I think, a total of, converted from pesos, which was 5,300 pesos, came out to about $250 a year for my water. And
It's not bad at all.
You pay that once a year, and that's it. And so it's not a monthly bill like some of your other utilities, whereas as Steve said, the electric bill comes every 2 months. This one, your water bill, you pay once a year.
Wow. Harold, I have to ask, what's the square footage of your home?
The square footage of our home before the building going on is a little over 6,000 square feet.
6,000. Nice.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, can we turn this back to me now?
and what's your electric cost? I'm just curious.
We don't have the solar on the building, but my most recent bill was $2,311, which comes out, pesos, comes out to $115 for the 2 months.
$115? You're paying less than Steve?
Well,
Steve, what are you
No.
running? No.
I'm paying about $7 every month.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm paying about $60, just under $60 US dollars a month.
That's crazy.
That's actually quite low.
It is.
Yeah, it's low. I'm saying it's crazy low.
Yeah, I think he probably slept with the electricity man.
Oh, Lord.
I thought that was your department, Steve.
Now, how about housing costs, renting versus buying?
Okay, I've been here 15 years almost. Started real estate about maybe 12 years ago. Up until about 5 years ago, almost everybody wanted to be at around $250,000 max to purchase a home. In the last, especially couple of years, people are tending to look now in the $400,000 to $800,000. So now, obviously, we still have places at $250,000, but people are now, we're attracting that kind of clientele that are looking for a higher end property.
A little bougie, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And something, just so as you understand the property taxes, something here, say at $500,000 US dollars, you're going to pay about $250 a year in property taxes.
Oh, Lord.
And that includes free garbage, just in case you're shocked.
Oh,
in most areas, that includes your garbage collection.
$250 property. What's the catch there?
None.
There's
none.
That's just what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. It's very attractive.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And even with Harold not having solar, electric, and so on, one of the advantages is here, it really never gets too cold in the winter, and it doesn't really get too hot in the summer. That's a very broad way to describe it. I have AC, we have mini splits here, and I have one in each bedroom of my house and 2 in the living area and kitchen, which is open plan. We use the one in the bedroom only. And actually, I've stopped using it very recently because we're coming into our version of winter, which is not too brutal. But now I just survive with a ceiling fan in the bedroom.
So winter, the low, what do you say, 50s?
I would say it was in the 50s. I think last year or the year before, it got down into the 40s. And that's when you are able to use, if you have a fireplace, I definitely utilize that in the winter time.
Oh, you would, Harold. You're used to Palm Springs.
Yeah,
You're used to
exactly.
100,
Yeah.
120 when it gets down.
Yeah.
But
Well, it is strange, how people acclimatize to it because they come down here and for the first 2-3 years, they're never out of shorts.
Right.
And then the fourth year, they're like, God, it's cold.
Yes,
It's like, well, it
exactly.
didn't change. They used to say about 5 years ago, the figure was that we had an average of 76 degrees throughout the year.
Nice.
I would say it's probably actually a little bit up from that now.
I would say about 78,
Yeah,
maybe
that's what
79.
I was going to say 78.
No, I could definitely deal with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Considering our summers here in Phoenix, 115.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But it's a dry heat.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So it's walking into a pizza oven.
Yeah.
It's a dry heat. But yeah. So do you get like a rainy season in the summer, monsoons, or hurricanes?
We get
do you get hurricanes?
Hurricanes, no, not really. We did have a earthquake about 300 kilometers from us on September 19, which was kind of ironic because the last 3 earthquakes in Mexico have all been on September 19th. So I'm going home to Ireland next year on September 17th.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But that was kind of weird. They had the big one, I think it was in 1985, that killed 10,000 people, which was said that was in Mexico City. And we did feel it here. But I'm from Ireland. I've never experienced anything like that. So it was kind of a weird feeling. Hurricanes don't. A couple of times we might have high winds, not hurricanes because we're inland.
Puerto Vallarta just dodged what?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Everybody was online this morning saying how they were grateful that it didn't hit them. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Right. I have two friends there as well that moved from Phoenix.
Yeah. But we have rainy season, which is through the summer. It starts about July 15th, June 15th, and it goes to, it's kind of just finished.
Yeah, I would say
around now. But, we have some really heavy rains. Those of us who live here year round, we love the rainy season because we're completely surrounded by mountains. So the mountains are beautiful while the rains are here. So they're still green, but in about another month, they'll be starting to turn brown until the rains hit again.
Well, yeah, it's brown here too most of the time.
Yeah.
So does Ajijic have, wait, you didn't tell us about what renting. What's a rental?
Rentals have really kind of skyrocketed in the last 5 years. They have probably close to doubled. You used to be able to get a little nice 1-bedroom, maybe with a den in the village of Ajijic for about maybe $650. Now that's going to cost probably at least $1,000. So they really have gone up, and people have been buying properties to use as rentals. Maybe they're retiring in 5 years, so they're buying them now to rent them out long term. You can get anything from about $800 to about $1,500 is the norm. And then, of course, we have higher end properties that are up in the 3,000s and 4,000s.
So if I was looking for a really beautiful home and I was looking to purchase one, let's say I wouldn't go 6,000 square foot. I'd go, let's say 2,000, 3,000. What am I looking at?
Well, obviously it largely depends where you are and if you have a view. Ajijic, the village, is definitely the more expensive area.
I want Harold view.
Yeah, okay. You're good for that kind of view, really. Like for a bigger house with that kind of view, you're going to be at about 1.2 million.
It's still a bargain.
Oh yeah, I mean it is. Well, of course, it largely depends where you're coming from.
Right, exactly.
Because I just in Northern Ireland, because I'm in real estate, obviously I'm always converting prices and everything like that. And I was actually kind of surprised at how inexpensive it was in Ireland. But then, you have to deal with 300 days of rain every year.
Rain.
Yeah, because everyone's it's so green here. And I said, well, it should be. We've got 300 days of rain every year. It better be green.
Yeah.
So,
Sure,
that,
should
but,
be.
yeah, but that kind of, probably the most expensive, or the average price that people want to be now are around the 500,000.
Okay.
Yeah, but in the village, in Ajijic, it's getting more difficult to get $500,000 with a view.
Oh, wow. So with a view, 500,000, what will that square footage buy me? How
You'd be
much?
talking probably at least. Do you work in square feet?
We do.
Yeah,
I know
2,500 to 3,500.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
pretty big.
Yeah,
That's,
you gotta.
that's
When
pretty
people
big.
are looking online though at listings here, you gotta remember
It's square meters.
Square
that.
meters.
Well, it is, but normally they have the conversion. But you got to remember that in Mexico, anything that's covered is counted as construction. So things like terrace or a carport or something like that, as long as it's covered, it's going to be in your listing as construction. So it doesn't have to have walls.
Is it counted as your square footage?
Yes.
Or no?
Yeah.
It is.
Like just a
Okay.
carport, which is just a covered
Right.
parking area, that will
Or a
be
terrace.
part of your construction online. Yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't
Gotcha.
have to be enclosed with walls.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And tell us about the arts and culture scene. I know I've seen videos and pictures of these, I don't know if these singers or
Yeah.
bands and mariachi and all that
Yeah.
stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, we have here what's called the Lake Chapala Society, which is actually run by Steve Balfour, who I think is a member of the group. And he has really transformed that and brought us what he calls the concerts in the park, which is outside. It's in a beautiful setting. And he brings about every 2 weeks, he brings somebody in, but it's really quality performers. And actually, one of the guys that I posted that is a Mexican guy who sings opera and whatever. He had a contract with David Foster in LA, but he went on and was performed in Carnegie Hall as well.
Oh, Enrique.
So, yeah.
Nice voice.
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing. And we really do have wonderful performers. And I think the last video that I posted on the group was the gay guys can all get up and dance together,
I
and
saw
nobody
that.
cares about it. We're usually about 10% of the audience, at least, quite often more than that. But nobody cares if we all get up and dance together and so on. So it's very open like that.
Gotcha. Harold, tell us about your arts and culture.
Well, I just recently became involved with the Lakeside Little Theater. It's one of the longest running English-speaking community theaters in the area. We are just starting the 58th season, and it was started, interestingly enough. Do you remember the movie It's a Wonderful Life?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You remember Jimmy Stewart's younger brother, George Bailey? Kind of the hot one, the hot younger brother. Well, his name, I believe, is Todd Carnes. He ended up coming down, moving to Ajijic, and he was one of the founding members of the Lakeside Little Community Theater. And he is actually buried in the Ajijic Cemetery. But, what they have here is a great resource. People who are not only getting involved with the theater, but our friend Brian Mattis just became president this year, and he's really doing lots of things with the community. He's starting an academy for, if anybody's interested in doing lighting, tech, backstage, and of course getting involved with acting, they're going to have an acting academy. So that's a really good resource for the arts. Some of the other things that are here is wonderful artists who are painting murals throughout the town. One, you have an artist named Ephraim Gonzalez, who's been here for many years and he has a studio here, and he runs classes for children to learn painting. But he also opened up a new museum here in town, which I have not gone to yet. But all of you can walk down any street in Ajijic and see these wonderful murals that people have been hired to paint. And it's just absolutely amazing. And then also, as we approach Dia de los Muertos in a few weeks, you will see the creativity of people because they will have the parades and the costumes. I know that the Lake Chapala Society is right now having an altar. They're having classes of how to build altars for Dia de los Muertos, because that is a big celebration for people to honor the people who have passed on, and they make it a big party and tradition, and the art of that is just absolutely beautiful. And
I've seen some of that.
And so as we approach, it's only less than 2 weeks away, and it's just amazing what will happen. One of the things that they have in the town square, one of the walls across from the church is a wall of skulls, and the art piece is called Vivir y Morir, which translated to English means life and death. And each of the wall is all of these skulls that have people's names on it. But during Dia de los Muertos, every skull on that wall will have a candle, and it's lit up at night, and it's absolutely beautiful. And that's one of the reasons why I love Mexico and its people and the culture, because they approach a serious topic as death, as a celebration and not to be afraid of. And it's just beautiful how the art that is created around that. And it's one of the reasons why I love Mexico and Ajijic.
Yeah, that really sounds nice. Isn't it translated like Day of the Death?
Yeah.
Dead.
Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like in a few weeks, it's like near Halloween, huh?
It's right after.
Yeah, right after that. And Halloween is not a Mexican celebration, but the local kids will go through the village and do the trick and treat thing. They shout "Queremos Halloween," which is "We want Halloween." So they've kind of maybe latched on to our traditions.
I hear you go trick or
Yeah,
treating.
well, he's out tricking.
Yeah, but I'm more of a sure thing. I'm single, don't judge.
I don't judge. I said we're going to have a good time on this podcast.
Exactly.
For a good time, call Steve Cross.
All right. So Ajijic does have a lot of culture, so I wouldn't be bored at all.
No.
If I moved there, you'd keep me entertained.
Yes.
Well, like we were talking about, two of the big organizations are the Lake Chapala Society and the Lakeside Little Theater. And now they're both with gay presidents. And it's been fantastic. I mean, both those guys, Brian Mattis and Steve Balfour, they've given huge amount of time to bring them to where they currently are, which is fantastic. The quality of the theater is actually very, very, very good.
Yeah,
and we always post in our local.
Of course,
Facebook
Harold's
group.
in it.
Exactly. Yes.
my theater debut. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
Oh, and I want some video taken.
Yes. Oh, don't worry. I'll be criticizing in the audience.
I'd love to see it.
I can be brutal.
Yeah, there are no small.
We know you can.
Exactly.
There are no small parts, only small actors.
Yeah. But the other thing probably we should mention here, the lifestyle here in general and in the gay community is cocktail parties, which typically start at maybe anywhere between 4 to 6 o'clock and run 2 hours. And then after that, a lot of people will go to dinner together because it's so inexpensive to eat in the restaurants.
So is it cocktail? Is it cocktail parties at different people's houses, or is it out?
That kind of thing, or we'll meet out.
Okay,
it's either or.
Sounds like fun to me.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. How about the restaurant scene? Are you guys foodies? I love food.
Yeah.
So
we all are.
We all are.
Yeah. A lot of people, I mean, I I was married to a cordon bleu chef, and then when he passed, I had to call people and ask, if I put bacon in a frying pan, do I have to put oil in or something like that? So for me, it was just, I'm going out tonight. But everybody, you just call somebody and you meet out in a restaurant. We have really good restaurants here.
Okay.
Yeah, we really do.
Is
so
it
you're
more
certainly
than
not spoiled?
Yeah.
Is it more than local Mexican food? Can you get international food?
Oh, yes,
at all?
absolutely. We have several Italians. We have got Argentinian steak places. So we're very, very well catered for. Actually, about 7 years ago, when I had the B&B then, when somebody asked you where could they go for Mexican food, that was the most difficult thing to answer. Because it was
Really?
it was like, well, we had everything else, but that now it's different. We have several that are really good, higher end in the village. But I just went out to breakfast yesterday morning with a girlfriend of mine, and it was down on the lake, just a very basic place to look at, but the food was amazing. They do what they call machetes, which is like a long, thinner omelet, but it's like probably 15 inches long, and it was delicious. And for two of those,
You're a size queen.
exactly, yes.
Ooh,
And I know it was
15
because I
inches.
measured. I threw a towel over it and measured.
Are you sure?
And it almost fitted twice.
Are you?
But it was like $12 for two of those with coffee and sodas and whatever.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Really, really inexpensive. And do they have like really good, like Michelin star restaurants?
Yeah, we don't have Michelin stars here because it's just not a thing.
Right.
But we have a couple of really good higher end. But again, the higher end is inexpensive. So restaurants are opening probably at an alarming rate.
Yeah, there's a lot of new restaurants that have opened up in the last few weeks that I definitely want to try. I know where you went for breakfast, I just noticed that opened up. And then there's another place in West Ajijic, Las Palmas, that just opened up. And then El Charro was the last one that I went to. And that was really, really good. I mean, to be able to find beef Wellington in Ajijic and made correct way, it was definitely a very nice dining experience. And it all depends on what you're looking for. And I find it's funny what you had said, trying to find Mexican food. Everybody has their version or the Americanized version of Mexican food, and they're expecting that and going, no, that's not how it's done here. This is real Mexican cooking. And you have a lot of what they call the fondas, which are the little family restaurants, and where they don't even have a menu. They just give you, said, this is what we have. And the food is just absolutely incredible. And so you definitely have your choice of restaurants. And I know when I moved here, Jeff and I go out to eat every day because it's a lot less expensive. It's easier to eat out than it is to go grocery shopping and then cook at home.
Gotcha.
So definitely have lots of choices here. So it just all depends what you're looking for.
The way you describe Ajijic, it seems like it's like in a phase where it's really growing. So it sounds like it may turn into a small San Miguel or...
Well, it's been called the new San Miguel, even though we're hugely different. And San Miguel is a beautiful, beautiful place. But I just like the climate here. And now, because I've made such a good friend base, this is where I'm going to stay for sure.
Yeah.
But San Miguel is a beautiful place. And we're considered kind of similar, but still different.
Yeah.
At that. But actually, going back to the Mexican food here, years ago when we had the B&B, somebody said about Mexican and we sent them to it, and they came back and they said it was good, but it wasn't as good as Taco Bell. And we're like,
Oh my God.
yeah. So I gave them a look, and my maid spoke English, and we went back to the kitchen, and she said, "Is that what they call the resting bitch face?" I said,
That
"Yes,
would be my
that
face.
was resting
I'd be
bitch
like,
face."
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody once told me I had a resting bitch face, and I looked at them and I was like, "What?" And then, yeah, I do.
And you realize it was true.
Yeah, it's true. So, okay. So good restaurants, good culture. I'm liking it. Tell us about, is there any public transportation? I don't know what the situation.
yeah.
You definitely need a car, right?
You
No, it definitely helps to have a car because you just limit yourself. But there is a good bus system through, and actually we have a very good bus system through the country. We have several fleets of luxury buses. So if you wanted to go to somewhere like San Miguel or Puerto Vallarta, they're really good luxury buses. I mean, if you live in the village, you can survive without a car. But, you kind of just limit yourself if you want to go out rather than calling taxis to go everywhere to restaurants.
Right.
Because
Then
outside of Ajijic towards Chapala is definitely becoming more cultural. And now we actually have over in Chapala itself, we have a weekly drag show on a Wednesday night, which 5 years ago would have been unheard of to have, but they have every Wednesday night, they have a drag show, and it's actually really well attended by local families. That's the weird thing. It's like a mom and dad and their two little kids will come to see it and they love it.
My God.
Older Mexican couples will come to see it and they love it. And we had recently in the village, we had a Miss Gay Ajijic. And the best thing for me was seeing that all of the families that came to support the competitors.
That's so great.
They were all from working class, but they all had maybe 20 family members that were there to cheer them on. And you're talking like 3 and 4 generations.
Yeah.
So it was
That's
really
great.
cool that they were there to support them. And that is one of the things from the local community. They really don't care. My maid and gardener are a married couple. And when my husband died about a year later, they were out like husband shopping for me. And he would come to do the garden and say, "We saw a gay in the village today.
A gay.
We think that you should meet." I said, "Well, it doesn't work like that. There has to be chemistry, and there has to be." But it was kind of cute that they were looking out for a husband for him.
That's so great. I love that.
He had all of his teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. That's a plus.
Yes.
That's a plus, Steve. I love that though. That's great that they don't care.
Oh no, they just don't care.
Yeah, I love that. That's wonderful. So you have a bus system. Is there traffic at all?
Yeah, that is one of the downs. There is a lot of traffic.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now, especially at weekends, because lots of people from Guadalajara have weekend homes here, or they come out to party for the weekend at certain venues which are sort of on the west side of Ajijic. So, yeah, traffic has become pretty bad. If you know the area well enough, ways to get around it, cuts and so on. But we're kind of like not telling people those shortcuts or everyone's going to use them.
Yes. Right.
So, me, because I work every day, I know how to get around it all. But yeah, that's definitely one of the downsides, are the traffic.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because you only have the main highway going through all of the cities in Lakeside, and that's what people tend to use. And so, yeah, you just learn to deal with it, and there are certain times of the day that is worse than others.
And the accessibility to the airport, Guadalajara airport, is like, what, 45 minutes, you said?
Yeah.
I can do it in 30.
30. And again, it depends on when you're going. I know some of the early morning flights that I've taken from Guadalajara, I'll leave here at 4 a.m. to get to the airport. I'm there in half an hour. And so
that's not bad.
The traffic is not bad, but what's happening at the airport is that the airport is growing. They're building a new terminal. They're building a new hotel. And I believe they've started building the second runway at the airport. So the growth that's happening in the area, and they're bringing in different flights, like the flight I told you about, the Aero Mexico direct to Madrid. Well, I just also found out that I think it's Air France also has a direct flight going. I haven't seen the details, but my husband Jeff was telling me that he didn't know that this flight existed. So more and more flights are happening where people are coming to Guadalajara, and the airport is expanding as well. But it's very easy. And that's also one of the reasons why, choosing Ajijic over San Miguel as a primary residence is the fact that I can get to the Guadalajara airport, fly to Palm Springs via Phoenix or Dallas, or fly anywhere very easily from Ajijic and Guadalajara, whereas if I was in San Miguel, it would take me almost nearly 2 hours to get to the airport to fly somewhere. So
Do they have to go to Guadalajara too?
No, they have to either go to León or Querétaro, which is hour and a half to 2 hour drive from San Miguel. That's why we ultimately chose Ajijic, because of the airport.
Yep. Smart. That's a smart decision.
Yes.
You want to be, that's one of the things, you want to be around close by to an airport.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So if you're still working, is it important to live close to work, or because of the traffic?
Well, if you're working, one, a lot of people that I know are not working, retired. And also, two, it all depends on your visa status. Because if you have your permanent visa, you don't have to, if you decide to work, then, you don't have to get a work permit. But when you are what they call temporal, which is what I have, you have to get a work permit in order to get income here. So it doesn't, just because you come down here doesn't mean you can automatically work. You still have to follow the laws, that the Mexican government has stated on what you can and can't do here.
Right.
But there are people who I know that work remotely. Their job is in the States and they choose to live here, and they work the term digital nomad. You can pretty much, with a computer, you can do, anything. Yeah.
Right.
So my friends who live next door to me, they work from the US, but they do everything via computer, and they can do it anywhere. So
okay.
Yeah.
So they have, we'll get into that part in just a little bit about the visa and temporary visa and whatnot. Okay. So let's go on to another. So tell me about the crime. What's the crime like? Is there crime? Can you go out at night, feel safe? What's the story?
Yeah, I mean, we go out every night.
Every night.
We don't feel unsafe like that. And also, there's actually a lot of single women who live here, and like a lot of them go out there's live music somewhere every night. There's always a venue with live music, at least one. So, I mean, the bars are busy. Nobody really looks like crime like that. Nobody's scared of being mugged on the way home or that kind of thing, for sure. I mean, yeah, we do have some home invasions because a lot of people are only here for 6 months and the houses are locked up. For the other 6 months. So, because sometimes when you're showing people houses, they're like, why does everybody have bars on the doors? They said, well, it makes them feel better. Yeah. And it makes them feel better when they go back for the 6 months that they have that extra
protection.
Thing. But sometimes people come down and they're too over the top. I mean, I was showing a house yesterday in a gated development where you have to go through 2 security gates. We got to the house, they had bars in every window, and I was like, God, okay, this is kind of overkill.
Yeah, it's like a fortress.
Yes, exactly. And the clients were saying, well, why do they have the bars on? I said, well, just everybody has their own comfort level. But crime, like break-ins and so on, are not a huge thing. But, like everywhere else, they happen. But certainly everybody goes out at night without thinking about the crime situation. And to be honest with you, obviously the cartel thing is a big thing in Mexico that everyone asks us. The cartel is everywhere. Largely speaking, we really don't know anything about it. It's not like part of our everyday thinking to think
Right,
about
and
the
and
cartel.
you're better off not thinking.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and because it's kind of minimal, and to be honest with you, it doesn't affect the expat community because largely we're not involved in it.
Right. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and
So
that's
it's more
not to negate what happens to locals and so on, but it's usually within the community that it happens, and usually it's our maiden gardeners that tell us what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an English-speaking or an English newspaper here that's weekly, and we might hear some things from there.
Yeah. And also with some of the local Facebook groups here, people tend to report. I know for my neighborhood, there is a Facebook group, and everybody, if something happened in the neighborhood, it's the digital Gladys Kravitz.
yeah,
everybody
we
knows.
have the same thing.
But
it's a horrible app. I actually love to turn it off.
Yeah, but people will let people know. So in the case of my neighborhood Facebook group, they'll let you know if someone's power went out. They'll see if it's neighborhood wide or just one. If someone got broken into, they'll let it know. You will always find the resources, but to Steve's point, I've never had to think about safety or anything. Whether you are in Mexico or the US, you just use common sense. Don't flash your money, or don't wear lots of expensive jewelry. It's just common sense. But it hasn't been an issue. I haven't felt unsafe here.
Okay.
But if somebody wants to come down here and buy me expensive jewelry, I will wear it.
We'll find you that Daddy Warbucks.
Yes, we will, Steve. Is there a homeless population?
They're down by the lake in certain areas. There are a couple of guys. Usually it's because of drugs, but you're not actually really aware of them. They kind of stay like in a little area, and you'll have panhandlers in the traffic and that kind of thing. Like we have people who came from Honduras and so that are panhandling, and they tend to stay maybe a year and then move on.
But you don't have like Tent City, right?
No, not at all. No,
okay.
In the village, there's nobody lying in doorways or anything like that. No, they kind of all hang together down on the lake. But even with that, there's not 100 of them. It's actually quite small.
Okay, so there's not really a problem.
No.
Okay, so let's go on to healthcare. Tell us about healthcare. Are there enough doctors per person? Do you have long waits? I know, depending upon your residency status, I would think either you need public or private healthcare. Probably when you're temporary, you need the private healthcare until you become a permanent resident.
Well, what we've done is currently for the last several years, I've been on the healthcare with my husband through his former employer, IBM. And so if I needed anything, I would go back to the States. But what I'm finding is that anything that I need is here. I just pay for it in cash. And last year I cracked my head open and I had to go to the hospital and get stitches. And I went in, I think it lasted for all of an hour. And they gave me the stitches. They gave me the tetanus shot. Everything cost me, I think, $75 US dollars to do.
And you were in the ER?
I went to the ER of the hospital, the San Antonio Hospital, which is only a few years old, very clean, very modern, and that's where I went to have my stitches put in. And I have found that the healthcare system is very superior here. I had a friend from the States who was here less than 2 years ago and to come down, and he got his eyes, he was going to have cataract surgery, which he ended up doing, found a great doctor down here. But then during, they had to do an EKG. Well, they found an anomaly, and so we ended up finding someone to read it, and it turns out that he had a 99% blockage in his artery. And so they had to do, emergencies.
Stent.
They put in a stent, and got it all done. This all happened within a week. And so didn't have to wait, got into the doctor. They read it, said, "Oh my God, you got to get in here." They've got the stent in, and we got the results and cleared up the blockage. And again, we paid for his healthcare out of pocket, but we kept all the records so he could turn it into his insurance company. And the insurance company was trying to stall it. And the fact is, they didn't deem it as an emergency. So the doctor down here, wrote out, say he would have died. And so, long story short, his insurance company reimbursed for the procedure. But that procedure,
just to know how much it was.
Oh yeah, I know exactly how much it was. It was in the States, that procedure probably would have been close to 100,000. Here was just a tad over 20,000 US dollars. And he's doing well, and so it's great. I think what potential retirees need to do their own research, that some hospitals and some doctors say they take Medicare, but I don't know the extent of it, because you have to really do your homework with respect to the healthcare, because I personally have not done the homework about the public system here and the rules, ins and outs of it. But if you've got health issues, you really want to do your homework. Go onto the Mexican government website, see what's available. But I'm saying for the doctors here, incredible, absolutely incredible here. And so I pay everything out of pocket if I need to, so I'm actually going to get rid of my U.S. health insurance because, one, I don't go there anymore, and two, I have found that anything that I need, I can easily find and then, again, pay out of pocket. But not everybody's going to be able to pay out of pocket. So check with your insurance provider to see what they will allow or not allow for you living in Mexico. And what they'll cover.
All the insurance companies are different. Some won't let you do anything. Some just say if you're traveling, it's okay, but that's about it. How about you, Steve? You're a permanent, right?
Working, I'm covered by the local social system, so I can access any of their hospitals and so on. But one of the other points, I've actually had quite a few clients who come down here to live who are HIV positive, and they've been able to get their meds on one of the local systems as well. It might take you maybe 2 months to get through the system. But they're all able to claim their HIV medications here, more or less free of charge. There's a yearly charge to it, but it's pretty inexpensive to do that.
So that gets us into a little bit about visas. So if you're a temporary resident and you're not living there full time, or you're trying to get residency for your first year, how does that work with healthcare? Do they make you purchase like a private healthcare insurance before you go on the public?
No, I mean, for me, because I was able to get my visa because my husband has his permanent visa, we were not forced or asked that we have a the insurance, what the Mexican government does, and you start everything in the States at the Mexican consulate,
Right.
and you have to show that you are not going to be a drain on the system. So the Mexican government has specific financial requirements in order for you to get your temporal or your permanent visa. And there's not one set number. It's each consulate is a little different, and I've gone onto the different consulate websites, and I saw one a few weeks ago in Chicago where they quote, you have to have the X amount of dollars in your bank account in order to do this. Well, I went to another consulate in a different city. They had a different one,
Everybody's
and
different.
everybody is different. But for me, when I got my temporal, I had to show, because I was a married in the States, I had to get my marriage certificate certified through the state of California, what's called an apostille, because the Mexican government doesn't recognize U.S. notaries or anything. So I had to send my wedding license to the state of California to get what's called the apostille, and then brought it back to Mexico, and I did everything else in Mexico. But with the temporal, it's good for 1 year, and then every year you have to renew it. By year 3, you can apply for your permanent. Okay. I just went through renewing my temporal for year 2, and I paid, I think, just under 5,000 pesos to renew it for the year. Okay, which comes out to $250 US.
Okay.
And then, according to the person at INM, the immigration office, she told me that next year I can apply for the temporal, because what I was going to do when I renewed it in April, I was going to pay for the next few years all up front. And she told me, no, save your money, because next year you can apply for your
The permanent?
permanent. And so by having, whether you're temporary visa or your permanent visa, means that you can stay in the country as long as you want. So in other words, you don't have to leave to go back to the United States or anything. You can go back and forth wherever you want. When you come back in, you just have to show that you are a temporary or permanent resident, so they can mark your passport accordingly, because you don't want to be marked as a tourist, because if you do, then that can screw up your residency. And
so how long do you have to stay in Mexico if you're looking for residency, if you're trying to get your visa?
Okay. Everything starts in the U.S. Once all of the paperwork is all done, you come down here and you have to go to the immigration office to finish the end. While you are doing that process to get your temporary or permanent visa, you have to stay in Mexico. Because what happens is, if you happen to leave the country before that process is done and you haven't gotten your card, you have to start the whole process over again. And typically, now, from seeing what I've seen and how long it took me to get my renewal took me about 2 weeks. I think initially, when you start this process, you have to stay in the country 30 days to get everything, because then your application gets processed. Then they take your photograph, your fingerprints, everything, and then they issue your card. Once you have your card, and you're done until you have to renew it the next year.
Right.
It also largely depends which embassy that you go through in the United States. Some of them will just offer you the permanent visa immediately without doing the temporal. And like as Harold said, that it also depends who you get in each embassy as to what the financial requirements will be.
Yes.
Right. And Steve, are you permanent now?
Yes, I've been permanent for years. Yeah.
For years. Yeah. How long are you there?
He had 4 years in Puerto Vallarta and almost 15 years here.
Oh, yeah.
So
you're
I'm
an
about
old-timer.
19 years. Yeah.
Yeah, you're a pro at all this.
I am.
You are.
He's
Do they
a
have
pro.
golden visas? Do they have golden visas where you can purchase a property for like $500,000 and actually get your permanent residency?
Not necessarily, but you can come in and purchase a property on a tourist visa.
Yes.
So when you're going for, I just had to send off by FedEx yesterday to a gay couple who had bought a property here, and they said, "Oh, the lady said if you can send us the deed." They bought maybe 2 months ago, so the deed was in my office ready for them to collect, and I sent it off to them, and they said it's just going to help your visa status. If you can get that sent to us, we'll get you permanente straight away. But that's the first time that I've been asked to do that in years.
Right.
First time they're just like, quite often they're like, if you want permanente, just let us know and we'll do it. So it really does kind of just depend who you get at the embassy and which embassy that you go to initially for the financial requirements.
Gotcha. So what do you wish that was in Ajijic that you don't have that you might have had elsewhere?
Shoe stores.
Oh, Steve, you have so many shoes.
I don't care about the health care or anything like that as long as I have nice shoes.
He's like a Mel DeMarcos, a male version of a Mel DeMarcos.
He is.
Yeah. No, here, I mean, we're not like Puerto Vallarta where there are nightclubs to party until 6 a.m. Here, lots of things are closing up by 10. Obviously, the gay bar and the bars go on later.
That's my speed.
Yeah, to 1 o'clock. Well, that's why a lot of people like us, because things start early and finish earlier.
I like that.
But anything for like any really good shopping for clothes or anything like that, you have to go to the city, which is 45 minutes away. But then you've got fabulous malls and high-end shopping if you want that. I mean, there's
but
not
do they have
really
Chinese
many of us
food?
here. Sorry?
Do they have Chinese food?
They have a PF Chang's there.
Oh, no. I was going to. There's a lot of places that I've been actually doing podcasts on, whether it be in Europe. In Europe, nobody has good Mexican food and nobody has good Chinese food.
Yeah.
So it's lacking.
Well, we have a Chinese restaurant here in the village, which I actually like. Other people will criticize it, but I like it. But we have a couple of really good Thai restaurants.
Okay.
Like Simply Thai and whatever. And I think they're very good.
Yes. I like the Simply Thai. And also, when you go into Guadalajara, if you go buy your shoes, in the historic district of downtown Guadalajara, there's a whole area. I mean, there's a Chinese restaurant in every corner in there. But I would have to say, going to Guadalajara for the shopping, you can pretty much find everything here. And I would have to say my only the complaint is the traffic, but you get used to it. But there isn't anything that I say, oh my God, we don't have this here. You can pretty much get anything that you need locally, or you go online, or you go shoe shopping with Steve in the city, and you can get anything you want in Guadalajara. And so,
gotcha.
The only thing that we have that we have a shortage of are single, mature men. I joke about it, but it is kind of one of the things here. People generally retire here as couples.
Yes.
And we have single guys and so on, but there's definitely not as many single, mature guys.
I'll have to send them from here.
Well, you should.
Yeah.
It's really the least you can do.
Right. And go see my friend.
The very least.
Exactly. Yes.
The very least. Yes. So besides the traffic and the lack of shoe stores close by, there's no cons. Would you say there are any cons to living?
And again, this is a very personal thing, and that I'm kind of passionate about animal rescue and welfare and so on. And well, there are two ways to look at it. There are a lot of expats when they come down here. First of all, they think that every dog on the street is a stray dog, which it's not. They are on the street during the day and they know about the traffic and they go back home at night and go back home to be fed. But so many people grab them off the street and think that these poor dogs are living on the street. They are, but they have homes. But then we do have others that are in need of homes, and we have at least 3 big rescues, and they send the dogs north of the border if we can't get them adopted locally. So,
Steve, you're a rescue. You have done some rescue work.
Oh, I have. Yes, I have. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've ended up with 6 dogs who are.
That's what I was just going to ask you how many now.
Yeah, but we have a lot of people who foster dogs and so on, and a lot of really, really good people, especially actually in the gay community. We have a lot of people in dog rescue, and they house them and try to find homes. And we now have a bus that goes from here up north that can take them. They can have like 50 dogs on the bus at a time. Yeah. Or we're always looking for volunteers who are going to certain cities, because we have a dog from here who's adopted in Portland or something like that. So we're always looking for volunteers to take them back on the flight with them.
You just rescued one this week, right?
I did, yeah. And she's all, well, actually it turned out to be a boy. I thought it was a girl.
Okay.
And then I turned it over to the lady who was going to I paid to have her kind of housed and taken care of. Then she sent me a message. She said, "That's actually a boy." And I said, "Well, then he needs to manscape," because I couldn't see that. I wasn't able to see that from looking at him.
Oh, yeah, it was hidden.
Yes.
Maybe he was cold.
Exactly.
Maybe it was a little chilly.
Maybe growing it out for the winter.
Yeah, you know what happens when you get cold. All right. So in wrapping up, gentlemen, what would you say to our audience if they're thinking about relocating to Ajijic?
Well, obviously, as a realtor, I would say do it.
Of course you would.
Yeah. No, but we have a great community. I mean, yesterday, there's a couple of guys here and they threw like a harvest dinner in their home. So, there are lots of gay events going on. And for Harold's debut in the theater on November the 8th, we have a group going, which is going to be at least 30 gay guys going on one night to see it. So put it like this, you don't miss out on anything here.
Yeah. Right. 30 gay guys is a lot of people.
Yeah, we recently did a gay day at the theater because we have so many recent gay couples and singles that have moved here that really aren't aware of the theater scene that we have. So we did a gay afternoon and we had about 55 people at that just to do a tour of the theater. But, if the gay group has 1,300 members, probably I would guesstimate about 850 of them are actually here. Mm-hmm. But 5 years ago, I could drive around the village and every gay guy that I saw, I knew who they were. Now that's not the case.
Now you gotta get out there more.
Exactly. Now there's a lot of recent transplants that have come in, and a lot of guys come here and they're very much homebodies.
Yeah,
which is probably why they don't go to PV, because here is just kind of it's more catered to that.
I'd be interested in knowing how many people talk to you guys on the Where Do Gays Retire Facebook group and found Ajijic, because before knowing you guys, I didn't know what Ajijic was.
Yeah.
It sounded, I couldn't even pronounce it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm going to start being more active on the Tuesdays when we can post the real estate. But I post quite often, just kind of more to let people know that there is a good social life here for gay guys. You certainly don't have to come here and miss out on anything, because we have a pretty, quite often I just, want to stay home for an evening. But if you want to go out every night,
it's a little difficult.
Yes. Yeah. So you don't need to miss out on anything. Almost everything we have here.
Yeah.
Right. How about you, Harold?
I love the interaction with people who come here and seeing the opportunities that are available. I would just tell people who are coming down here is enjoy the time that you're here. Look around. If you're thinking of moving here, stay one contact Steve Cross, and he will definitely show you. But I think for me, I see the opportunity of people coming down here, whether they stay with me at my vacation rental place or anything. I just say, do your homework and find out everything that you before you make that decision, because it is definitely a big decision to
Sure is.
move to another country, whether it's Mexico or anywhere else. And I would just say, come down here for the weather, come here for the community. I love this place, and I see myself here for a very long time. And so,
actually, one of the funny things that I wanted to mention that people are always amazed at, because they come down thinking that they're coming into this little backward Mexican village, and then you walk down one of the main streets in the village and we have a dildo store. I mean, it's hilarious. And they have a sign outside saying that you can purchase our dildos by the inch and all dildos are gluten-free.
GMO and gluten-free.
Yeah, it's called Wilds. That interesting? It's called Wilds after Oscar Wilde, who actually went to my school in Northern Ireland. He was a few years ahead of me. But it's kind of one of the novelty things about the village, to show that gay people, like gay life is so accepted, because that's set in the middle of all the other stores. And I know both of the guys who own it. And they say at the beginning when they open, they've been open about 7 years now, so they've been a success. And they say at the very beginning, these old ladies were coming in saying, "Oh, I need a dildo, and it's just for a friend. It's for my friend's birthday." And then he said,
asking for a friend.
Yes, yeah. Then they come in 3 months later and they said, "Okay, it's for me, and I want the double black angles with ripples."
And vibrating.
Yes, exactly. So it's quite open. They sell poppers, they sell dildos, they sell all of these novelty sex things, along with T-shirts and whatever. But they actually started as the dildo store. It's called the Dilderia.
Dilderia.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hysterical.
And it's one of the novelty things, about the village that's just kind of comical.
Yeah, they should have the
But it's obviously needed, because 7 years later, they're still in business.
That's true. That's a sign.
They should have the T-shirt that said, my parents went to Ajijic and all they brought me back was this dildo.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, where can our audience find you guys? So, Steve, do you have a website, email? And
yes,
also Harold?
My email is stevecross65@gmail.com. And I also have my own website, which is luxuryhomesajijic.com. But I don't want to keep people off, because there's everything on there from 150,000 right up to the high-end luxury at 2 million.
Right.
So that's my own personal one. And I get a lot of action on every time I
know you do.
You get a lot of action.
Yeah. I could do with a little more recently. It's been a bit of a famine, especially during quarantine, when the crack in your sofa looked appealing at one point.
Oh my God.
You can edit that out. But I get most action through my Facebook page, which is just Steve Cross. And every time I post on Where Do Gays Retire, I probably get maybe 15 private messages sent about thinking of coming down here. And actually just yesterday, there's a guy in Chicago that is a Facebook friend who I've never met. And he said, "Oh, I met these guys that know you from Ajijic." He said, "Frank." And I said, "Is the other one called Stan? And I know Frank is on your group." And he said, "Yes, that's them." So we're this little village, but so many people have been here and visited. And a lot of people seem to have a connection to here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It just seems so inviting after this podcast. Yeah. It's a place where I would be interested in looking at, And
it's not for everybody. But it's certainly for a lot of people. I mean, it really is. Yeah.
How about you, Harold?
Well, I have my website for my vacation rentals, and it's called In Ajijic, INNAJIJIC.com. And my email address is haroldwatts247 at Gmail, and you can find me at Harold Watts on Facebook and Instagram. And same thing, I'm going to start doing more promotions and being more active on this site, not only to advertise what is happening here, but also to just interact with the group, to let people know and to promote Ajijic, and also be able to answer questions about moving to another country. And because it is definitely a process, and not to be afraid of it. It's exciting to be able to say, oh my God, I'm going to move to Mexico, or I'm going to move to Portugal, or anything. And to be able to have resources like this group to be able to have a community to answer those questions. But those are the places that I can be reached at any time through social media, in ajijic.com. And then, of course, Harold Watts 247 on Instagram and Harold Watts on Facebook.
Okay, great. Well, gentlemen, it's been a blast. This is one of the funnest podcasts that I've had. It did go on for quite some time. It's a long one, so people might have to take a break on their treadmill or driving in their car. But regardless, we had a great time. I want to thank you both for coming and taking the time. I know we had a little technical issues before, but everything worked out well, and I appreciate you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Right. Thank you very much for having us.
Okay. And remember, Steve is still looking for a husband.
Yep. Send him his way.
If you could put that into the intro, that would be great.
I will.
All right.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen.
Thanks a million.
Thank you.
All righty.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast and consider making a donation by clicking the coffee cup on any page at www.wheredogaysretire.com. Each cup of coffee that you buy costs $5 and goes towards helping us continue the podcast. Thank you for your continued support.